Welcome back to the Lawless Sports Podcast. I am your host, Casey Lawless, and we are back, and we're going to be talking about some very interesting topics. We're going to be heading back to the NFL, my favorite sport of all, football being my favorite sport of all time, and we've got a few topics to get into, and I'm really excited to get back into this, so let's waste no more time. First things first, Carson Wentz being fully healthy, 100% healthy, and what that's going to mean for the Philadelphia Eagles coming into the next season. Also, we're going to be talking about the better fantasy pickup between Antonio Brown or Juju Smith-Schuster. Who are you taking first if you had the choice in your fantasy draft? Then we will be talking about my top QBs of all time, and I want to know yours as well, so I want you to comment them down below and let me know if we agree on certain things, where I'm way off, where I'm way on. And then finally, we will be talking about my sleeper teams for the NFL season coming into 2019-2020 season. So, who am I going to think? Who do I think is going to be taking a surprising jump or a surprising downfall? And again, I also want you to comment what teams you guys think. But we are going to get into that first topic, which is Carson Wentz being 100% healthy. It's one of the best things that could happen to the Eagles. He's going to provide a consistency at that quarterback position. I believe he's going to quickly get back to that MVP form. Mark my words. I mean, not just because I'm a biased Eagles fan, but also he's so talented on the field. He's a born winner. You see the way he walks out of that locker room. He leads that locker room, and his team loves him. He's only going to get better. He will only progress and become better year after year. And the Eagles this season, they possibly have had their greatest receiving core in their team's history. Zach Ertz, best receiving tight end in the league, hands down. Alshon Jeffrey is a top 15 wide receiver in the league. Deshaun Jackson coming back is going to be huge on that outside deep threat role. And then Nelson Agholor, who is another quality receiver, can provide just so much extra things that you can do in the offense, whether you run him out of halfback or whether slot receiver out wide, he'll relieve so much pressure. And it'll also be a fresh set of wheels getting onto the field. You have a great run game, which I love with Jordan Howard. Great third down backs and Corey Clement and Wendell Smallwood. Offensive line, solid. Hopefully Andre Dillard can get some playing time, learn behind Jason Peters. Maybe even Jason Peters slides into that left guard role and Dillard plays right to his left side. I mean, you have an extremely scary defense one of the best defenses that we've ever seen on an Eagles team. I mean, one thing that I've, my entire life growing up as an Eagles fan, we've been known for our incredible defense, and it stands no different. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, the best interior defensive lineman in football, not named Aaron Donald, in my opinion. I think he's number 2. Aaron Donald's just on another level, just a different type of freak. But Malcolm Jenkins, A lot of things are speculated about him. He's been skipping off-season workouts, but trust me, he will be back on the field leading that team. I know he will be. And then I love our great young secondary. Not too crazy high on Jalen Mills, but I do love Sidney Jones. I love Rasul Douglas. Cre'Von LeBlanc stepped up in the playoffs against New Orleans. And, of course, you cannot forget the number 1 Ronald Darby, who is just an absolute lockdown stud. I could not be more excited for this season. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to surprise a lot of people. I think they're going to win 11-plus games this season. Guaranteed. I think we're going to win the NFC East, and I think we have a strong case to make it to the NFC Championship. I'm just a little scared of some of the other teams in the NFC, but I feel we are going to be one of the most potent offenses in the league. But then, enough said on that one. With the incredibly active NFL offseason that, we've gone through, there might not be a bigger storyline fantasy-wise than AB being traded to Oakland and Juju Smith-Schuster now being the number 1 receiver in Pittsburgh. I get this question all the time, whether I'm at work, whether I'm with my friends, wherever. Who am I taking first in a fantasy draft? You have great arguments for both. I mean, with Antonio Brown, he is arguably the best receiver in football. He's hands down top 5. I mean, you cannot argue with his productivity. You cannot argue with the yards. You cannot argue with how many catches he has spanned over in the last 3 seasons. I believe it's over 300 catches, which is just incredible. But then you have a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, who is super on the rise last year, sneaky underrated. I would say he's a top 15 receiver in football who only looks like he's going to ascend next season, and now he's only going to be getting more targets. So who am I picking? And then again, you have maybe a surefire quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger giving Juju the ball, but did Juju only have that incredible season because AB was taking all the pressure off of him off the other side? Are AB and Derek Carr going to mesh well? Is Derek Carr finally going to have that bounce back season? There are seasons where Derek Carr looked incredibly consistent at that quarterback position, but the last 2 seasons, Derek Carr, he looks lost in the pocket. He steps into the pocket with just a lack of confidence. He's unable to read defenses at the line and audible when necessary. But we've seen Derek Carr get the job done, and is he going to work well with AB? And honestly, I'm going AB, and here's why. I mean, it's a hard choice for me, especially, but I feel like Ben Roethlisberger, I understand, he just threw over 5,000 yards. I see this season he maybe not throw over 4,000. He just looks a little sluggish, a little slow. There's something about Ben that I see the cliff. There's very few quarterbacks who can avoid that cliff, one being Tom Brady. And that cliff is coming. He was drafted 15 seasons ago, and I think it might be time for Big Ben to finally, take a step down, and maybe for Pittsburgh to start looking at another quarterback. And not only that, I think Juju's only going to get more attention now that he is really, truly going to be the number 1 target for the Steelers next season. And I don't think he's going to be able to answer to the pressure, and I don't think he's going to be able to overcome like AB has, being like 6 feet tall and catching contested passes over 3 defenders. Like, I just don't see Juju being that type of receiver. I feel like he's too immature. I think he's a big kid. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with having fun, but just there's something about Antonio Brown that he just provides that level of consistency that I'm looking for in a receiver. I know he knows every route in the route tree. I know he has the shortest hands in football. I know what I'm getting with AB. Even if Derek Carr throws it remotely in his radius, I just have more faith in AB coming down with it. So I'm going to go AB. And I want to know what you guys think as well. Now we're going to go over my top 5 quarterbacks of all time. My friends know, a lot of people know, my favorite player in the NFL ever is Tom Brady. I mean, the dude is just a level of consistency that we've really never seen. I mean, Tom Brady, the only seasons that he has missed the playoffs was the one where he tore his ACL. He has been to the playoffs every single season in his career. Even his rookies, he's just on another level. Does he have the most talented arm? No, he doesn't. But is there another quarterback that you want leading your team with 2 minutes left on the clock in the fourth quarter? The answer is no. Tom Brady, his leadership, his drive, his passion, he makes everyone around him look so much better than they really are. As you can see, when the only guy who really has left New England and it still looked good was Wes Welker, but I mean, he went from Brady to Peyton Manning. So, I mean, not much of a drop-off. But guys like Amendola, I don't see him doing anything in Miami this season. I don't see Chris Hogan doing anything in Carolina this season. You didn't see anything from Deion Branch when he got traded. I'm just saying, Brady just makes the guys around him just look so much better. The only receiver who's ever come into the New England Patriots with Tom Brady, and we already knew what he was going to be, was Randy Moss. I mean, Randy Moss, again, in my opinion, is the greatest receiver of all time. There's no one scarier. There's no one better. But that's what Tom Brady does for your football team. Tom Brady is just going to make everyone around him look better, and he's not going to be cocky about it. He's not going to be arrogant about it. And I just think he's the best. So Brady is my number 1 quarterback of all time. Now that that's out of the way, these are really hard. But I got to say, number 2 has to be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't think there's been a more talented thrower of the football in the last 25 years. The closest thing we ever saw to Aaron Rodgers is Marino, And Aaron Rodgers is just only better than Dan Marino. I mean, he's just more athletic. He can move around more. And I have never seen a quarterback throw a prettier ball than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, on every single release, he knows exactly where it's going, and it's always exactly where it should be. Only thing that's ever held Aaron Rodgers back was I believe that the teams around him have never been as well coached as a Tom Brady. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers in New England maybe wins 8 Super Bowls, not 6. No exaggeration. I think Aaron Rodgers gets to 11 Super Bowls and wins 8. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is just that talented, and if Belichick had that as his quarterback, I mean, that's a scary thought. But number 2 is Aaron Rodgers, hands down. Number 3, I got to go Joe Montana. Joe Cool. I mean, 4 for 4 in the Super Bowl. You could not argue with that level of play. I mean, okay, he had Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, a lot of great players around him. I mean, but Joe Montana, he was just the coolest under pressure. He never really let the moment get to him, and he always stood up to the challenge. The only reason he's not number 2 on this list is because of his season in Kansas City, where he was still a competent quarterback. I wasn't even alive, but, I've seen enough game tape, and I've watched the highlights, and I've seen, but, it's kind of like a Michael Jordan in Washington situation. That's why, he loses that number 2 edge for me. Number 4, again, I just have to go Dan Marino. I mean, I've never seen a more talented quarterback outside of Aaron Rodgers, but throwing the football. I mean, he was just studly, the first quarterback to ever throw for 5,000 passing yards in a league in a time where throwing for 4,000 was impressive. Like, if you threw for 4,000 yards in Dan Marino's era, you were like, whoa, you are a great quarterback. He threw for 5,000. I have no doubt in my mind, and many NFL scouts and owners and analysts have said that, and I agree with this. In this era, he might have thrown for 6,000 yards. He was just that impressive of a thrower of the football. I mean, he was incredible, and I love watching his highlights, and I just love watching just his pinpoint accuracy. He was just an absolute monster. One of the best to ever do it. And number 5, and again, this is also because, I can't really say that I've watched Elway. I've never really watched Aikman. I've never really watched Steve Young. Number 5, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, to me, is just, he was a machine throwing the football. He basically was the offense in Indianapolis. Herman, oh my God, Herman Edwards. Tony Dungy basically handed Peyton the reins saying, you run the offense, and I'll tell you when you're wrong. And he never was. Peyton Manning was on another level in the regular season. Peyton Manning is the greatest regular season quarterback in NFL history to me. There's no one that I want on the field more than Peyton Manning in the regular season. Just sometimes, for some reason in the playoffs, he just didn't get it done. I mean, okay, he ended with 2 rings, but with his level of talent, he should have ended with more. I don't know if it was just a mental block that he couldn't get through, or, I mean, I don't know why, but there was just something that, he just couldn't get over. But again, he won 2 Super Bowls, so you have to give him credit where his credit's due. He's, of course, a first ballot Hall of Fame. All 5 of these are first ballot Hall of Famers. I mean, Montana and Marino already were, but for Brady, Rodgers, and Manning, all first ballot, no question about it. And a lot of people, I feel like, are going to be surprised that I left off Drew Brees on this list. I love Drew Brees. Drew Brees might be the most underrated QB in NFL history. The dude is just a stud season after season after season after season, putting up 4,500, 5,000. That's passer rating is just unreal. Just broke the NFL record for completion percentage in a season. I mean, Drew Brees is unreal. He's an absolute monster, and he's a top 10 QB for sure all time, but he's not in my top 5, and I don't want that to get twisted, or for me to say, or for you guys to think that I think Drew Brees is not talented. Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks to have ever thrown a football on an NFL field, ever, hands down, but not in my personal top 5. More than likely, he's number 6. It was between him and Peyton for me, but I just give Peyton the edge. just slightly because of Peyton's second Super Bowl win as well. Okay, so now this is the fun one. Guys, I have 3 teams for you guys. I have 3 teams who I think are going to be an absolute sleeper, and I think they're going to surprise the NFL, and they're going to take the step up this year. And then I also have 3 teams who I think are going to be drastically down from last season. First team, goes without saying, is going to just take the NFL by storm next season is, I think, the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are one of the most talented NFL rosters in the league from an all-offensive perspective. I mean, Matt Ryan is an absolute monster. Julio Jones, to me, is the second best receiver in football. I love Devonta Freeman. I mean, they have an electric offense. Calvin Ridley came onto the scene last season. Like, they really just had so much bad luck last season. So many injuries, offensively and defensively, and I feel like the coaching really broke down, and they didn't know how to handle it. But this is a bounce-back team for sure next season, and I definitely see them getting 10-plus wins and winning the NFC South. And I'll get to why in the end they're going to win the NFC South when I get to the 3 teams who are going to go down, if you catch my drift. Number 2 team, the Cleveland Browns. I mean, what a turnaround in the last 4 seasons. To go 1-31 and then to almost clinch a playoff spot. Oh, no. Well, not almost clinch a playoff spot, but they got extremely close. I mean, that was a super close division, but to almost bump the Ravens out of the playoffs last season. I mean, what a week. That was one of my favorite. That might be one of my favorite Week 17 games ever that I've ever watched. Baker Mayfield, coming into the draft, he was the number 1 pick, and everyone was like, gotta be Darnold. It has to be Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, most pro-ready quarterback. He's the best quarterback in this class. Baker Mayfield is just making everyone look so stupid. I mean, there are so few guys who believed in Baker, and I mean, they just look so tall and mighty because they were right. Baker Mayfield, dude, is an absolute stud. He has the fire, he has the passion, and you can see it when he's standing in the pocket talking to that team, when he's throwing the ball. I mean, he's going to throw out blocks for you. Like, Baker Mayfield, to me, is one of those quarterbacks who could actually get to that next level of elite quarterback status. Maybe not next season, but maybe 2 seasons down the line. Like, he's incredible. And I see Baker Mayfield throwing 30-plus touchdowns next season. And I really like Cleveland next year. They are just so talented across the board, but talent on paper can only get you so far. I think it's all on coaching. Freddie Kitchens, first year as the head coach. What's he going to bring to the table that's different? And I expect a lot out of this Cleveland team, and I really don't want them to let me down because I feel like if they do exactly what I think they're going to do, they're going to be the most fun team to watch. And then my last team who I think is going to take a major step up from last season. I'm riding with Arizona. I know it sounds crazy, but this Kyler Murray kid is he's incredible. He had the best arm in the draft, hands down. He's one of the most electric runners I've ever seen, and it's not even his first instinct. Like, to have that talent in your legs and to just always look to throw the football first, and he is an incredible thrower, can easily get it 50 yards down the field accurately, can throw it into tight windows. You saw it all year at Oklahoma. I mean, the kid is a stud. They got a brand new head coach who's going to run the air raid offense. I mean, Kyler Murray's the perfect quarterback to run it. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, the new head coach, like, him and Kyler already have that connection. Like, this is going to be big. I think Larry Fitz is going to play a big role next season. Not on the field, but in the locker room for sure. I'm liking Arizona a lot. Maybe not to make the playoffs, but they're going to be exciting to watch, and I think they're going to win a lot of games next season. But that is one of the most competitive divisions in football, especially with Jimmy G coming back in San Fran. I really like them a lot. 3 teams I think are going to be taking a step down. Now, this is this is the interesting one. And a lot of you are going to disagree with me. But I'm starting with Kansas City. And here's why. I love the coaching staff. I love Andy Reid. Loved him in Philly. Gets a lot of hate. Dude doesn't know how to watch the clock, but whatever. I love Patrick Mahomes. Dude is an absolute stud. Just won MVP. Threw 50 touchdown passes. You cannot argue with his stats, with his numbers. The arm talent is there, and he looks great. Kareem Hunt is gone. I'm not sure if Tyreek Hill is going to play a snap next season. The NFL's still not sure. Roger Goodell he's still, I believe, on the suspended indefinitely list right now. I'm not too certain, but as of right now, Tyreek Hill will not be taking a snap. Tyreek Hill was one of the most electric weapons in football last season. He was just a monster on the punt return, as a running back, receiver. You can't call him a receiver. He is everything. And they're not going to have that next season. And Tyreek Hill adds such a dimension to your offense, and they're not going to have it. Travis Kelce, number 2 tight end in football. You got to love him. But now with Tyreek off the field, so much attention is going to be paid to Travis Kelce now. Sammy Watkins, do you really trust him being your number 1 receiver? Tyreek Hill was literally doing it all. And I don't trust Kansas City's running backs and Damian Williams and Spencer Ware. If Charkandrick West is still there, I don't trust any of those guys. They have a super spotty defense that's really old. I just don't see it with Kansas City next year. If you saw a lot of games with Kansas City, they were just outscoring their opponents. We're just going to score more points. And with Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt not being there, it is extremely likely that those shootout scenarios do not end well for them. So that's my first team. My second team is the New Orleans Saints. I feel like there's just now a lack of confidence in the team. And I feel like they're super held up on this PI call that wasn't called 5 months ago at this point, 6 months ago. And they're still held up on that. You guys got to move forward. There was a whole petition. It was crazy. But I just don't see it. Drew Brees, one of the greatest QBs of all time. Never going to bet against him. But again, age is getting there. And you saw it the last half of last season, his numbers were extremely down. Mark Ingram, one of the most underrated running backs in football, is now not on the team. He added such a great second dimension to that running attack with him and Alvin Kamara, and now that's not going to be there. It's not that Alvin Kamara cannot take number 1 carries, but just having that second dimension of Ingram to be in there as your kind of do-it-all back, they're going to miss him more than they think. I love Michael Thomas. I love Traquan Smith. I even like Taysom Hill a lot. I think he has a lot of heart. But again, that New Orleans defense, they've improved, but they still scare me. I love Marshawn Lattimore. Really wanted Philly to trade up for him a couple years back, but it's okay. They have Eli Apple, who's been playing surprisingly well at that cornerback number 2 for them when he was god-awful in New York, and I wish he stayed in New York, but it's okay. Marcus Williams is a competent safety, who hopefully doesn't miss any more open tackles. I like Cameron Jordan a lot, but I just named 4 players. There's 11 players on that defense. I'm not going to underrate Demario Davis at all, but the Saints, do not be shocked if they are a 9-win team and miss the playoffs next season. Another team that I was going to say that I definitely, could also say possibly, because I was between these 2 teams. The Chicago Bears. I like Chicago a lot. I love their defense. I think they are some studs. I think Khalil Mack is possibly, he could turn into one of the greatest defensive players of this generation. Do I trust Tariq Cohen as the lead back? No, I don't. I don't trust Tariq Cohen as lead back. I love Tariq Cohen. I think he's a Swiss Army knife. I think he dude is a stud. He reminds me a lot of an even more talented Darren Sproles. Yes, I said it. And I still don't believe in them. They don't have great receivers. They don't have a great tight end. Their offensive line is questionable. And I really don't like their linebacking core. I mean, there's just a lot of question marks, and I feel like, there was a lot of luck that went into last season for them, for real. Not to, hate on them or to, put any ill will or put any, put a damper on their great season that they had last year, but are the monsters in the Midway going to be the same next season? And the Chicago Bears definitely should have went with them over Dallas. I think Dallas is going to be an 8-8 team and not make the playoffs because I feel like there's a lot of teams in the NFC that are better than the Cowboys. But, yeah, Chicago I think is definitely going to take a step down. I like Mitchell Trubisky, funny enough. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people don't think that he is talented enough to be an NFL quarterback, which I think is actually kind of crazy. But I love the system as well with Matt Nagy, the head coach. I really like what they're doing, but I am extremely skeptical that they were one of those teams who just got really hot late in the season and just kept winning, and that's why they made the playoffs, and I just don't see them doing that again. So, again, guys, thank you so much for listening to the 5th edition of the Lawless Sports Podcast. Hopefully, in a week's time, you will see this on Apple Podcasts as well. Of course, I will still be posting to SoundCloud. That's where I've gained this base of people who listen to me. Again, thank you guys so much. You truly mean so much to me, and I have so much fun doing this, and I try to state that in every single episode because this is just my passion. This is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. I want to be in sports broadcasting. I love it. I could not talk more fondly about this. This is my life. This is who I want to be every single day. This is what I want to grow up and do. And it all starts here. So thank you guys so much for listening. And I will catch you guys in the 6th edition, hopefully on Apple. All right, guys, have a great night. Goodbye.